Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we will learn about React Hook form. And in our Next.js application, we'll create a form and we'll implement the form in the cleanest way possible using React Hook form. Now, why use React Hook form? Let me explain you. But by the way, before proceeding to the video, I will highly recommend you to not just sit back, but put your hands in your keyboard and follow with me. The video can be a little detailed because I will be going through each and every line. So the video can get a little longer, but I am sure that you will understand everything at the end of the video regarding React Hook form, and you'll be able to implement forms in your Next.js application in the cleanest way possible. Now, why do we even need React Hook form? First of all, in your application, you might have seen that you have a form, you have fields, you have several fields, like let us consider a sign-up form. In sign-up form, you have full name, email address, password, and other fields as well. In your Next.js form, in your code, what you might have done is that to keep track of whatever user types in this inputs, you might have created state for each of these fields, and you might have created a onChange handler to keep track of every character that user types in each of these fields. Now that is okay, that works, but that gets a little messy when you're implementing forms too much. And you don't want to write boilerplate code. And to solve that problem, we have React Hook form. And this is what we'll be implementing today. We don't want to write boilerplate code. We will replace that boilerplate code and write the form or implement the form in the cleanest way possible. So let us start and implement React Hook form. Now I will open my terminal, and in my terminal I will navigate to projects directory, and here I will create a directory called, let's say, YouTube video. And I will open this directory in my Visual Studio Code. By the way, the spelling is wrong, but no worries. So I have opened the directory in Visual Studio Code, and okay, so let me expand it. And now here we'll create our Next.js application at the beginning. Let me zoom a little bit so that it will be easier for you. Now let us create empty Next.js application. So npx create next app at latest. This should create a Next.js application. And I want everything to be included in the current directory itself. And I will hit enter to keep all the default settings. You can see that the dependencies are being installed. So let us wait for a while. So okay, my dependencies and dev dependencies have been installed. Now let us actually start run this application. So npm run dev. This script is already written in package.json by default. Now we can see that my application has started in the port 3001 because 3000 port is already in use. But in your case, if 3000 port is empty, then it should open in 3000 port. And when we open this, our main page should load and we should see this default boilerplate code. Now let us navigate to app, and inside app base.tsx. Now let us remove this boilerplate code that is provided by default, and let us do a simple div, and inside this let us say paragraph tag and React Hook form tutorial. Now let us open that in. Okay, so we can see the changes. Now how we are going to implement React Hook form? So what I have planned is that we'll create a form, and the form that we'll be creating is the similar form that I showed you before. We'll create a sign up form where we'll have a full name, email, and we'll finally have passwords. So I will be creating a form, but instead of creating form in this page itself, let us create a separate folder called components, because in this video I will show you the best practices so that you can implement form in the cleanest way possible. For that, let me put all the components in a separate directory called components. And inside components, let me create a new component called form.tsx. Form.tsx and RAFCE. This is a snippet where you can access through this extension. So if you install the extension, you should be able to do something like this. Now I have my form and I've exported this form. Now let us use that in this page, and let us see if we can see whatever that component renders or not. So we can see the form is being rendered. Now whatever we need to do regarding the form, we will do in this component, and we'll further break down everything into several components, several pages, and we'll implement it. Now first of all, I need to create a form where we have 3 inputs, which are full name, email, and password. So okay, first of all, let us do something basic, and then let us transform our code to cleaner approach step by step. So first of all, let me create a form. So let me remove this action, and in my form I want an input called which has a placeholder called enter full name. So let us see the input. We can see that there is an input. So instead of creating every input tags like this one after another, what we can do is we can create a separate component for input as well. Now what I can do is inside component, I can create a new file called input field.tsx, and let me export this component. Once I export this component, now I will not create each input field like this. In fact, I will call that component every time I want an input field. So input field. Now let us implement React Hook form. To implement React Hook form, we should install React Hook form. So let us click on get started, and let us copy this code. So copy this command, and in our terminal, let us paste that. So I will create a new terminal, and here I will paste npm install React Hook form. So this should install React Hook form. So okay, the React Hook form has been installed. Now let us use that React Hook form. So there is a use form method from React Hook form. So use form, which comes from React Hook form. Now in this form, I need to pass a type for my input form fields. So let me create a type. So type input form fields, and what my input field will contain is that first of all, it will contain full name, which will be of type string, and it will contain email, which will also be of type string, and it will have password, which will be of type string. For now, let us skip this much, but later on I will show you how to integrate external UI libraries like Shadcn. So I will show you some more fields later on, but for now let us keep basic full name, email, and password. Now let us provide this type in this use form. So input form fields, and what this use form returns to me is that I can basically accept register, and it will also give me handle submit, and it will also give me form state, which will be useful to keep track of the state of form after I submit the form. So I can keep track of errors, I can keep track if the form is being submitted, and I can also accept other several things, but for now let us keep it like this. Now inside this method, what I can do is I can provide default values for my fields, and I want the full name to be empty at the beginning, and also I want email to be empty and password to be empty as well. So we have used the use form method from React Hook form. Now I need to create a on submit button. So after I submit the form, I need to run some function. So let me create it. So const, and by the way, if you didn't understand what register and all of these are, then hold on for a while, you will understand everything as we progress on. So let me create on submit, and let us make this function asynchronous, and this function will accept data which will be of type input form fields. So input form fields, and for now let us create a basic try catch, and inside this console.error, and let us log out the error, and let us console.wrong and running, and also let us console.log the data that we receive. So oops, so Ctrl Y, and let us console.log the data that we receive. Okay, very basic. Now what we need to do is we have our input field. Now what I want to do is when I submit this form, I want to run this function. To run this function, I can pass this function as a parameter to this function. So basically what I mean is that in this form, whenever I submit this form, so on submit, I want to call handle submit, which is being returned by use form, and inside this I can pass the function that I've created, so on submit. So now what I can do is inside this form I also can create a button. So let me create a button. If the form is being submitted, so if is submitting is true, then I want to do something as loading. Otherwise I can do sign up. And also in my button I can pass several other things like disabled. So I want my button to be disabled when the form is being submitted. So is submitting true, then disable it. And my button should be of type submit. And let me give a very basic styling. So padding 4, busy green 500, and yeah, let's give text white as well. So let's open our application. And okay, so we've used use form from React Hook form, which runs on the client side. So I have to convert this page and I have to render this page on client, so this component basically. So use client. Now that error should go, and you can see the form and the button. Now inside my form I need to create several input fields. So now first of all, the first input field I want is full name. So now let us complete this component. Now in this component what I want to do is, basically in this component I want to accept several things. So let me first of all accept several things that gets passed to this component. I want register, and I know you have not understood what register is, what all of these things are. You will understand once we implement this, I promise you. So register, placeholder, and we also want required. And if required is not passed, by default I want as false. I want error, I want label, I want name, I want type to be of text, default type to be of type text, and then last thing I want is the validation, and this will be of type input field prop. So I need to create this interface now. So let us create this interface. So let us create this interface at the top. So interface input field prop, and first of all register would be of type any. So basically this will be an function, and I don't know what the function will be like, so for now I've kept it at any. And placeholder will be of type string, and we have required, which will be of type boolean. And another thing we have is error will be of type any. Error will also be an object. And we have label will be of type, let's say, okay, this can be of type string. And name will be of type string as well. Type will be of type string, but this is optional, so string. And validation will be of type any. So we've received everything. Now why this is showing error is required equals to false. Okay, why this is showing me error? So it says property required does not accept. Okay, we have not defined required here. So okay, we have a typo here. This should be required, not required. Now we have created the prop, we have passed this, we have accepted the prop. Now here let us return this div, and inside this div I want to create a label. So in my label I want to show whatever the label has been passed on this component. And here let's do HTML4 and provide the name. So inside this what I want to do now is class name and provide space y 5, so that we have some spacing between the label and the form. So before we do this, let us pass the information, let us pass this data to this component so that you have idea about what we are passing. So let us pass the data. So in my form, let us pass the data in this input field. So name. So name would, first of all, this input field we are making for the full name. So let us provide name as full name. And basically we have to provide the register, which will be register itself, which is coming up from this use form register function. And another thing we need to pass is error. If there is an error, then we want to show errors dot for full name, and we want to pass placeholder, so we can pass placeholder as enter your full name. And also we need to pass required, so we want the user to type full name, so required to true. And we need to pass label as well, which is full name. And last thing we need to pass is validation, so required. So we want so the validation, if the validation doesn't match, then we want to source message as full name is required, and the validation would be that the length of full name should be of minimum length 2. So what we're doing is that we're setting the validation if the length of if user types full name less than 2 length of 2, then we want to show this message, and this message will be stored in error. And once this message is stored in error, we'll render that in the UI. And to check the validation, we need this register function. So I hope you have an idea. So we're checking the validation, and to apply this validation, we need a register function. And once the validation runs, and if there is an error, then the error will be stored in this error object. And other things like name, placeholder, required, label, I think you already understand that. So now we have the data in this component. So now let us we have this label. Now next what we want is we want the input. So let us create an input, and the input type should be whatever we have passed here, which is by default text, or if we provide anything, then it can be other things as well. And the placeholder will be whatever we have passed to the component, placeholder, and name would be again what we passed in this component. And the last thing we want to do to run the validation is we need to spread in the register function, and inside this we need to pass the name, which can be full name, email, password, whatever we passed to this component. And we need to run the validation, which we have passed from the form page. So we have passed this validation. So once we do this, it will check for the validation. So this input can be a self closing tag. We do not need to create the closing tag separately. And now if this validation runs and if there is an error, then we also want to display that. So if there is an error, then we want to render the paragraph tag, and let us give a very basic styling. So text rate 500 and text should be small, and here let us render the error dot message. So if there is an error, we will render that, and this is an input, we have a label. So now we have one input field for full name. Let us go to our browser, and we can see that we have first input field. Now similarly, let us copy this and paste this 2 more times, one for email and another for password. Now for email, let us change this. So for email, the name will be email, register will be as it is, and if there is an error will be stored in errors.email, and placeholder can be enter your email, required true, so we want the email, and we can pass the label as email. Now for validation, what we can do is required, let us say email is required, and now we don't want to just see the minimum length. Instead, what we can do is we can do regex pattern matching. So let us specify the pattern, and the pattern that I want is, so let me copy and paste the pattern that I have created here. So basically what we're doing is this and this are the boundaries where we can keep the regex. And what we're doing is that we want some one or many characters, and then we want @, and then we can have one or many characters, then we want dot, and then we can have one or many characters. So this is the pattern matching for email. And another thing is the input field for password. The name will be password, and register will be as it is, and the errors will be stored in password, and enter your password. And what we can do is here we can also pass the type. So basically by default the type was text, but for password we want the type to be password, because when we send the type as password in the input field, we will not be able to see whatever user is typing. So enter your password required true, label can be password, and the verification would be, let's say, full name password is required, and the minimum length should be 6. Now let us go to our browser and we can see 3 input fields have already been created. Now lastly, what I want is, I have created a button, and when we submit, this is running. So let us check if this is running or not. Let us open our console, and okay, we are seeing some errors, but once we reload, I think we'll not see those errors. So okay, we cannot see the errors. Now let us click sign up and let's see if the validation is working correctly. So you can see full name is required, email is required, password is required. So if I reload this again and type in something, then I should see an error on email saying that basically this email is not a valid email. So let us provide something as let me console you @gmail.com, and now when I submit this, I should see the data in the console. So we can see all the data is being printed out in the console. Now we have implemented a very basic form. Now let us implement a third-party UI library. For this video, I have chosen Shadcn UI, but you can choose any other third-party UI libraries. So what I want is that in my input field, I want another field called country. And basically what I want to is, I want to add the select component from Shadcn UI. And from the select, I want the user to select a country, and then we want to implement that in our form. So another field that I want to add is country, which will be of type string. So first of all, okay, we can also set the default value for country as empty. And now let us open the Shadcn UI official documentation, and let us search for component select. So select, and this is the component that we'll be using. So basically we want to select country list from the select, and then we want to submit the form. So let us implement this. So let us copy this installation command, and in our terminal let us paste this. So this should install Shadcn, and then it should also add this select component. So this might take a little time. So okay, it says it needs to create components.json. So let us do yes. We want the base color to be neutral, and okay, it's writing in components.json, and it should add the select component. Okay, now we can see that the select component has been installed. In my components, there is a directory called UI, and there is a select component. Now what I can do is, basically what I want to do is, in my form, I want to create another select field, which is for country. So let's do whatever we are doing now. Let us create a separate component like input field, but this time for select field. So in my components, I'll create a file called selectfield.tsx, and let us export this React component, RFCE. Now in my select field component, similar to the input field, I want to create an interface so that I can accept several data that is being passed as prop. So interface select field prop, and I want the placeholder. So placeholder will be of type string. Another is controller or control. So this is a new thing. So control will be of type any. Basically control is a function, and we want the name string, label as string, these are basically similar to input field. We want the error, which is an object, which is any type. So validation, we want validation will be of type any, and we want register, which is a function which of type any. So the only thing new compared to input field is control here. Don't worry, you will understand this also very, very soon. So now let us accept these props. So placeholder, control, name, and label, error, next thing is validation, and then register, and the type would be select field prop. Now similar, I want to render a label and then a controller. So let us create a label tag. The HTML4 will be the name that we pass through the component, and inside this we'll render the label. And now we want to create a drop down. And why is this showing me the error? So okay, HTML4, okay, this is showing me the error because the string constructor, did you mean to call this expression? Okay, there is this should be of type string. Now we cannot see this error. Now below the label, I want to render the select field, that select component that we just installed from Shadcn. But to render that, we need a special tag from React Hook Form, which is called controller. So basically, if you're implementing any third-party UI libraries or components from third-party UI libraries, then we need to use this special tag. So inside this, we need to pass name. So name will be name, and then we need to pass the control, which we get access in this component, this control. And the next thing we want to pass is we need to check the validation. So register, and we need to pass the name and then validation object. And we need to render the select tag. So we have a render, and inside this we have access to field, and then we can give an arrow function, and now we can render whatever we want. So basically I want to render, I want to render this, I want to return this. So I have chosen the parenthesis. And now let us go back to our Shadcn UI select implementation. So let us copy this import, come back, and let us paste the import right here. And again, let us copy this and paste it right here. So format document, and now let us so the placeholder, it would be the placeholder that we pass to this component, placeholder. And I want okay, let's say I want light, dark, and system. Basically you can keep a different country name like India, US, or UK. And if there is an error, we want to display that. So here we can do error, and if there is an error, we want to render that in the paragraph tag. Class name, text read 500, text small, and then let us render that error.message. And okay, this is it. So it looks good. Now okay, now another thing we want to do is whenever user change the value from the select, we want to keep track. So the value will be field.value, and when user change the value, then we also want to keep track of that. So field.onChange. So I think this looks good. Now let us come back to our form, and then let us implement that component. So select, okay, where is the component? Select field. So this is the component, and now we need to pass the data to this component. Let us pass those datas. So register would be register, and name would be country, and we also need to pass the placeholder. So placeholder will be, let's say, select country, COUNTRY country, and we need to pass label. So label will be country, and we need to pass the validation object. So required, let's say, select a country, and we want the minimum length to be 2. We don't need to pass the validation for minimum length because user is anyway selecting from the list, but we can do this. And the error is errors.country. And another thing we want to pass is control and control. So control. So this control is very, very important. Now we need to access this control from use form. So let us accept that also, control. Now we have access to control, and we have passed to this select field. And in this select field, you have accepted this control, and we have passed this control to the controller. So now we have control over this controller. Now let us open our browser and let us see if this is working or not. So in my browser, it says, okay, now there is an error because we installed the components from Shadcn and the globals.css is not configured properly. So what I want to do is I want to paste global.css I have in my other project. I will provide the link in the description. You can paste this. Basically, I got this error because I installed Shadcn components later on. I could have initialized Shadcn while I installed the Next.js application, but it's okay. Now you can see that I no longer get that error. So I have my fields and I also have this drop down select list. Now let us open our console and let us try submitting this form. You can see that the validation is working correctly. And if I pass data, so if I pass some data, pass the password, pass the email, a random email, and then if I select a country, US, then you can see that the data is being received in the function. So this is the implementation of React Hook form. I hope you understood. So we have implemented use form in the cleanest way possible using React Hook form. We have created separate component for the input field and for the select field, and basically the validation is also working perfectly.